Welcome to In the News for September 10th, 2021. I am Brett Birdie from appsandlaw.com.
Hi, this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD.
Back at home. Welcome home, Jeff.
I know. It's so nice to be back in my office. This is my first day back in my office. I've just barely gotten in here, and I've got power at my office and power at my home. What a luxury that is.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. We take it for granted so often. So you posted about this, just wrote at the very top of your In the News post today that you're finally home. I think a few days ago you were able to get home, and you've obviously got internet back up and going, but I know things are a little bit still in disarray, but it's good that you're home. I'm glad to know everybody is back home and safe.
Yeah, the city is far from done. I mean, my dad doesn't have power yet, and many other people don't. And there's still, damage throughout the city. When I was driving in this morning, everybody has got trees down in front of their houses and stuff. And most of the blocks are okay in New Orleans. And then you'll pass by a house that, the roof was torn off or a tree fell on it or something. And then, of course, outside of New Orleans, outside of the protection of the levee system, such horrible damage. I just feel for those people. So it's been it was quite a hurricane, that's for sure. But we started the rebuilding process. Here we go.
Yeah. Some of our friends, our mutual acquaintances, folks that I know that are in New Orleans, have been tweeting out that things are slowly but steadily getting back to normal there.
Yeah, as I'm speaking today, you can't assume that any business is open. Like, you assume that everything's closed, and then maybe some of them are open. But I think that starting next week in New Orleans, it'll start to get a little bit more back to normal as we start the recovery process. So, but thank you for asking.
I just wanted to say, I know we had a good time talking last week about some of the apps that you have been using, as you guys had to scamper out of there, and we got a lot of great feedback from that. So thanks everybody that's been listening. Great, I appreciate the fact that it was great that you shared on that. So, well, you came back to some big news, right?
Indeed.
The leaves are brown and the sky is gray. I wish it was in LA on this winter day, but California streaming. So Apple just announced this, a couple of days ago, and next Tuesday, it's funny because I literally had to rearrange my calendar, because whenever Apple does an event or announces an event, Jeff, I mean, I literally have to call people and say, can we move this? Because I like to be there live and listen to it live. And man, we're going to have a lot to talk about next week, I'm sure. But California streaming, in fact, here is the Apple events page that they put up. And it's really cool. So anyway, give us a flavor, a couple of articles that you linked to today of what we can expect next Tuesday for Apple to announce.
Sure. I mean, the easiest prediction is a new iPhone, because with the exception of last year, I mean, Apple has introduced a new iPhone in September for a very, very long number of years. Originally, the iPhone came out earlier, but it's been September. And then the other tell is last year, when Apple wasn't going to introduce an iPhone in September, Apple actually alerted the press. And, Apple never pre-announces things, but even Apple themselves knew that everybody expects a September iPhone. So since we did not get one of those, we won't have it in September this year, I feel quite confident we will have a new iPhone, and we can circle back to what that may mean in a second. There's also incredibly strong rumors and people leaking images, some of which may be accurate, some of which may not, about a new a new Apple Watch coming out. And the rumor is that it will have more of a flat edge, like the current iPhone does, and a slightly bigger screen. But then once you go beyond the iPhone and the new Apple Watch, I think anything else is possible. I mean, an entry-level iPad, I think, is a real possibility, because this is sort of a consumer event. There has been a rumor for, most of this year, that Apple is working on a new version of AirPods, the entry-level AirPods, that would include some of the look and some of the features of the AirPods Pro, although probably not the noise cancellation, but sort of like the same look and stuff. So if that's been in the works, that could happen. Those would be my top 4 predictions. But hey, it's an Apple event. Anything is possible. Anything's possible. And those are just the hardware announcements. Who knows from a software standpoint what's coming? So
you linked to this excellent article from Ars Technica, and they went through exactly kind of some of the things that you're talking about there. It's funny how, in fact, John Gruber talked about this on his blog. Some people were thinking that 13 moniker, as in Apple, Lucky 13.
The question is, would Apple continue to do numbers on the iPhones? Because there are no numbers associated with Macs, for example. And even the Apple Watch, they have the series and stuff like that, but they downplay it a tiny bit. But John Gruber explains in this article that because Apple likes to sell the current model and then maybe the last year's model or 2 years ago.
Right.
And having a number makes it very clear to consumers which one's newer and which one's older. But at the same time, they want to sell the older models. So like they don't want to switch to a year, because then you're selling something called, you know, in the year 2021, if you sell an iPhone called the iPhone 2018 or 2019, consumers are like, I don't like the year, but they may not mind the number as much. But it does get a little ridiculous. You know, he points here that the Super Bowl continues to use numbers, even though we're, you know, way up in the numbers now. So, you know, will we eventually have an iPhone 29 or something? Who knows? But so, and even for this one, will it be iPhone 13, Brett, or will it be 12S? I mean, that's Apple's done that too. Who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows?
And that's what a lot of people have said. And in fact, many of the people that you and I know have read have said that it's probably going to be more like a 12S in the sense that it's just going to be some minor improvements. And we'll talk just a little bit more about that in a moment. But I'm probably going with, especially what John Gruber says here and other people, it's probably going to be an iPhone 13. But as you say, we're not going to know for sure exactly what they're going to call it. But it wouldn't surprise me if they stuck with the 13.
Yeah, that distinction, like it's just a marketing decision, but it usually depends upon how significant the improvements are. And again, we don't know what it's going to be. We'll find out on Tuesday. You know, there have been rumors like a much better screen on it with a faster refresh rate, like we have on the iPad Pro. Maybe it will just be in the Pro model of the iPhone. I don't know. And you know, other possibilities as well. But I mean, this is one of the years that, you know, sometimes I feel like you have a pretty good sense from the rumors of what it's going to be. This one, I mean, I've heard the rumors, but I feel like I don't really have a good idea of what this year's iPhone is going to have. So, which to tell you the truth, Brett, is what I prefer. I like it better when I get surprised. It's more fun. It's more interesting.
Right.
And you get to hear Apple's spin on why a feature matters. Whereas if everybody knows going into it that there's going to be a new one, then when Apple describes it, it feels like it's old news, even though it's not at all old news. It's brand new news. But but you know.
Yeah, you linked to this great story from MacRumors, and I think one of the things that they were talking about down here with the camera is that they may be improving it where, get ready to take pictures of the stars. I think they're going to try to improve maybe that low light photography or the night photography, which, by the way, is really amazing. Now, you got to have an iPhone 12 on that, but anyway, as we were talking about, it's probably going to be the new iPhone will be a little faster and have a better camera. Those things we can rely on. And then everything else might just be gravy on top of that.
Yeah. And I'll say that to the extent that there's truth to improving low light photography, that's always been the weakest point for an iPhone. In excellent light. When you're outside on a sunny day, I mean, even iPhones that are many, 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 many years old can still take excellent pictures. It's when you get more challenging with light that you've really seen the improvement over the years. And I think that there's still improvement to go. I feel like we are going to reach a point where iPhone pictures are better than even high-end, you know, SLRs in many circumstances. We're not there yet. We are at the point where iPhones are very competitive with point and snap cameras, which is why I think a lot of people are not buying those cameras anymore. But no, I mean, Apple knows people love to take pictures with the iPhone, and it's the #1 camera in the world. And I always look forward to camera improvements.
In this MacRumors article, I would love to see matte black or the bronze color. Ooh. Anyway, that's all the things that people get excited about, but that would be neat. So, and then just quickly, you already ran through a lot of these, but a new Apple Watch, I think that'd be great. They're continuing to improve it, although it's looked the same for all 6 generations. So as you mentioned, they might be tweaking the design just a little bit, like a bigger face on it, maybe. Yeah. Well, I'll be excited about that.
Well, it hasn't looked exactly the same because, of course, they did change the size because, you know, I'm trying to remember the numbers off the top of my head. You know, it was originally one set of sizes, and then they increased the 2 sizes just a little bit, but enough to make a difference. And I do prefer the bigger size. And so that makes me think that, you know, I would prefer a bigger size, especially if they do it the same way they've done it with the iPhones, which is continuing to reduce the bezel as much as possible so that you're not really getting a bigger, you know, or maybe only the tiniest bit of a bigger, you know, total size, but having more screen size. That's the big thing. And of course, whenever Apple talks about changing the size of an Apple Watch, the question we always wonder is, what about our bands? Can we continue to use our old bands? And I've seen rumors actually both ways on that way this week. My hope is that Apple will continue to allow us to use the bands that we've been accumulating over the years. So we'll see.
That would really stink if they do something like that. So yeah, we hope that will happen. And then lastly, you quickly referred to like the original iPad, but I've seen a few people talk about a new iPad mini that might be coming out. These are the smaller iPad that have been around for a long time. It's almost just like, it's like the back burner project, as it were, but it would be nice to see a new iPad mini come out as well.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm just looking up on the side here. It's been a little while since Apple has updated the iPad mini. It was around for a long time, and then Apple didn't do anything with it for many years.
Right.
They came out with the 5th generation in March of 2019. Okay, so it hasn't been, it's been a little over 2 years since the last mini. But I remember that when that mini came out, people were worried. Yeah, I think the one before that, according to my little notes in my cheat sheet in the side here, was in 2015. So it had been 4 years.
Right.
And people were wondering, will there ever be another mini? But the iPad mini really is a nice iPad. I owned a 1st generation one a long time ago.
Me too.
And as much as I use the iPad Pro with the huge screen and I love it, having that small, almost notebook, not notebook in terms of notebook computer, but notebook in terms of like a tiny little notebook of paper. It was really nice having something really small that you could sit there and just, lean back and read, and it weighs nothing. I mean, it's not like the weight of a Kindle or something like that, or an ebook reader. So I although I don't know that there's a place of an iPad mini in my life, it is a really nice device that I can see people really liking. So
we shall see. We'll see. By the way, if I think you mentioned this too. If anyone out there has one of the newer iPhones, I think this works on the iPhone 12, right, Jeff? You have to have like the LiDAR. But if you go to apple.com/apple-events, you can actually click on the Apple with your iPhone, and it brings you into, you actually had a video on this, right? You posted a video on this.
Yeah.
It'll bring you into like this virtual world, which, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it was very cool to experience it. Here, I'm showing the video here that you linked to, which I just thought was really cool. It brings up that little glowy apple, and then you can actually, if you move forward with your iPhone, you go through the apple. It's just kind of a neat experience. So if you haven't done it yet, I would recommend. It's a little bit of a fun little thing to do.
It is fun. And if nothing else, check out the video. And the reason why is, Apple has been pushing augmented reality for a while as the next big thing. And yet we still don't really have the big killer app for it. But instead, what we instead have is, you can measure people's height and stuff like that. But what we have is these product announcements where they have a little teaser that every time it uses just a little bit better augmented reality. And so, I feel like Apple has these incredibly talented engineers in the field of augmented reality. And so far, all they can do is these little gimmicky trick things. But, at some point, Apple's going to do something with augmented reality, and then their creativity will just shine. But for now, those folks are just creating, these cool little demos that a few people see before product announcements.
The last thing, just real quick, and then we can get off of this because you and I could talk about this for a long time, but it doesn't show it on the actual events page, but all of us that got emails about a new Apple event, the little title was California streaming. That's why we were talking about that earlier. And like some of the Apple executives tweeted out about that. And, I just think about, we always try to read into like, what is Apple going to announce, based on that little email invitation that they send, because it's all a virtual event and we can all watch the videos. But I can't help but think there's got to be maybe some announcements like for Apple TV Plus, maybe. I was listening to somebody, they said, I hope they just don't talk about Ted Lasso for 45 minutes, right? And how successful
although that might be fun too.
It could be fun too, exactly.
It's possible that that's a nod. My prediction, Brett, is that the only reason they called it California streaming is, number one, it sounds fun because it rhymes with California streaming. Of course. But it's just because it's not a live event and because they're going to be streaming the video and from California. Okay. So that's my take on it. But again, who knows?
That's a much more logical approach.
It's a less fun approach. It's not as exciting as Apple has some new streaming thing they're going to announce. And of course they might too.
Who knows?
I've always been actually amazed that at all of these product announcements that Apple's been doing for the last few years since they have had Apple TV Plus, that they haven't done more with their TV Plus programs. But for the most part, they've kept them separate. I mean, there will be a reference to Ted Lasso or For All Mankind or The Morning Show, certainly in the background. And if they're going to show off something on a screen, of course, it's going to be one of their programs. But, I thought we might get to a point where there was a segment of every product announcement where it's like, let's spend 10 minutes talking about the new shows. But Apple hasn't gone that way yet. And, it could change at any point, but so far they've been keeping their computer products separate from the streaming content for the most part, but we'll see.
Okay, we'll stop talking about that now because we'll be talking all about that by next Friday. Okay, but a couple of other things that you linked to, because you had a really great list of things this week, Jeff, which is great. This I actually saw from several places, and I thought this was interesting. Microsoft Teams is getting more support now for even Apple CarPlay, which when I first hear this, I'm thinking, come on, do we really need that? Zoom is already doing it. And, we're already doing and taking conference calls in our car, right? We've been doing that for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so then once I got past that little hump, I thought this is really cool. I'm thrilled to see that it's even coming into Apple CarPlay now.
Yeah, one of the side effects of the pandemic has been we are all far more comfortable with Zoom, Microsoft Teams, right. Google, all of these streaming these conference programs, and it's better because although you can currently dial in just using a phone to a conference from your call, including a Microsoft Teams call, but then you're just limited to just a phone call. So the people on the other line don't necessarily even see who you are, just a phone number and stuff like that. But if you have a dedicated Microsoft Teams app, the other people they won't see your face because it's not video. That would be dangerous.
You don't get any video.
Course. But they see a name with it, and Microsoft can include things like an easy mute button and stuff like that. So I think it makes sense for all of these conferencing clients to have a CarPlay app just to make it a little bit better to participate from the car when you have to do that. So bravo. I will say that Microsoft Teams, and I haven't explored this for this particular feature, but Microsoft, unlike Apple, which tends not to announce things until they're ready, Microsoft tends to announce new Microsoft Teams features a while before they're ready. So, with this announcement right today, just everybody should know it may be 3 months before you actually see this, or maybe it'll be later this month. We'll see. But they've had other features that they have announced, like years, way back when, having more people on the screen at one time, much like in Zoom, where you could have tens and tons of people. Microsoft announced it was coming, and then we all waited and waited and waited because we use Microsoft Teams in my office.
Right.
We do finally have it. So anyway, I hope this feature comes soon, and I think it's going to be absolutely useful as soon as it comes out.
Another new thing that, boy, I've even been seeing ads around the internet all over the place for these new, I guess, quasi creepy sunglasses. You had a couple of great links, of course, on here. This is a new pair of sunglasses from Facebook. And I guess Ray-Ban, which is owned by Luxottica, it's whatever that huge company is that basically we get all of our glasses from on there. But these are called Ray-Ban Stories, right? This is a good article that you linked to, and thanks again for the link, by the way. We like Joanna Stern. We follow her quite a bit. She's a great reporter, and this video is fantastic as well. We call them creepy because she does a good job of exploring the idea of having a camera built into these glasses. And we've seen this before, and she talks about that. Google Glasses and what is it? Snapchat. Mm-hmm. Right, which all looked a little weird and odd, and people kind of downplay them and laugh at them a little bit. But these look like real sunglasses. So these are the Ray-Ban Stories to go with the Facebook Stories, because the idea is you're going to upload it to Facebook, right? But this was interesting, and I'm glad you linked to a couple of this. When I saw it, I didn't think it was a big deal, but you and I keep talking about this idea that Apple probably is going into some of these other areas. The wearable internet, like the watch. We talk about the AirPods, the CarPlay kind of aspect, and now this could be something of what Apple could do because they look so much better and nicer than other glasses that have tried to be smart glasses like this.
Yeah. And, when Google tried to do their Google Glass, it was certainly ambitious, but it did make you look like a cyborg. So nobody would want to wear it in real life. These are the other way. They are not at all ambitious. I mean, all that they do is take pictures and video and then they allow you to play some music, and they have like speakers on the side that it's not even in your ear. So if somebody got close to you, they could hear it as well. And I think it has like 2 or 3 voice commands it alloes, like take a picture, take a video. So they're not really very smart sunglasses, but the big thing is they use that iconic Ray-Ban look of what do they call it? Wayfarer glasses, I think they are.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
They look. I'm thinking of Tom Cruise in Business. Right. Exactly. I mean, these are the first quote unquote smart sunglasses or glasses that actually look pretty decent. They don't look like anything that's really crazy. So from the Ray-Ban standpoint, I'm like, good. We're actually making a product that looks good.
Right.
From the Facebook standpoint, when I think of Facebook, the first thing I think of is, surveillance and gathering all of my information and selling it.
Right.
And so, is that the company that I'm going to necessarily want to have a camera on my face looking at everything? They claim that they've got privacy built in, and they things don't automatically post to your Facebook account or things like that. But, and the thing that's a little creepy is, and you just showed it in the picture that on the screen, that when it starts recording, a tiny, tiny, tiny little dot at the top right, a little light goes on, and they're like, oh, well, everybody's going to know that you're recording because that little white light comes on. I'm like, no, nobody is going to know that means it's recording. In fact, if you're outside, the light might not even be bright enough to really see that well. So no one's going to know that you're recording them. People are going to think it's creepy. And so it's, but I still have to say, something is, this area of augmented reality, of smart sunglasses. I mean, something is coming, and we are now taking another step. Google took the step towards what could you do with augmented reality. Facebook and Ray-Ban have taken the step towards they can look like normal glasses, which is important. And eventually you put it together and you have some real smarts associated with something that really looks pretty good. And then I could see a day, I mean, I wear glasses like you do too. I could see a day where I wear some smart glasses made by Apple that look pretty good and have some cool functions to it. And, we'll have to think about the creepiness factor. But, I'm reminded that when the iPhone had a camera, I remember that there were some people that said, oh my goodness, you can't possibly have a good camera on a smartphone because people are going to be taking it into like changing rooms or dressing rooms and taking pictures, and eventually we sort of go, or they're going to be taking it into like secret government places and taking pictures of things like the spy cams of the 1950s lore. But eventually we get used to it. Not that there aren't some restrictions, and there are still some places that you're not allowed to take a smart camera and you have to have it turned off. So we will work our way through it. But I feel like this is a glimpse at the future. So that's why I think this is, even though this particular product is probably not one that a lot of people are going to buy, I think that this product is still important because it's another step towards this augmented reality future.
Agreed. Yeah. And I just thought, again, to your point, it only records 30 seconds of a video because it's supposed, the idea is you're going to upload that to Facebook stories.
Yeah. It's for stories, right? They're going to be short by definition.
So it's not like you can record everything, but that could be coming and everything, it's just stored on the actual glasses themselves. And again, this video like that Joanna Stern did is excellent. In fact, you can probably get everything you need to know about it by watching this. And she does the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons on that. In fact, she's literally asking somebody here in this picture, do you know that I'm recording you? So it's kind of funny as she goes through on that. But I agree. I think the bigger picture, because I remember we talked about this last week, that, what is Apple, like, where are they going? We talk about the Apple smart car. We talk about what are the other things that Apple's doing, maybe putting rocket ships into space. But I really do think like we could be seeing in the next year or two something from Apple. And of course, I think it would look similar to this. It looks cool. It's Ray-Ban and it's all built in and it's all really nice. So anyway, thanks for linking to that. I like I said, it's not really specifically Apple because it is more on the Facebook side, but I think you did a good job of kind of recognizing like where this could go and what this could mean here probably in just a few years, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would love to. I mean, if I could have it that's like somewhere at the top left of my glasses, I could glance up and see the name of a person that was calling or texting me, or for that matter, if it's augmented reality, give me the name of the person that's coming down the street I'm about to talk to. That would be interesting. I don't necessarily even need to be able to record things, but having smart glasses is intriguing.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, a couple of bonuses. Number one, I love this little first story on your first bullet point here. I missed this, and maybe I'm not sorry that I missed it, but the ABA Journal, even no less, was talking about, had a neat little piece on here about a dating app for lawyers. And it's
Lawyers
called
and Love, yes.
Lawyer, LAWYR on this. So anyway, I just thought that was...
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, the idea that one of these didn't already exist was a little bit of surprise to me because they seem to have other specialized apps. But if you're a lawyer looking to date a lawyer, you can have a special, or if you're not a lawyer, but you're looking to hook up with a lawyer.
Yeah. Apparently one of the people, at least one, has to be a lawyer.
Yeah. Or a legal professional. You could be a paralegal or a legal secretary.
Okay.
You have to be in the legal system. And you can almost understand the idea of this. I mean, my wife is she not a practicing lawyer at the moment, but she did go to law school. And I do like the fact that at night, when I'm talking about a case that I'm working on, I can talk about a motion for summary judgment, and she totally understands what that means.
And she knows.
So there's some advantage to talking to people that can talk the lingo with you. But it's more funny than anything else. Is there? In fact, I'm just wondering: is there a similar act out there for doctors? Is there a doctor without the E app, or is there
what a market?
Accountant without the E app? Who knows? I don't know. There's money out there to be made, Brett. We could be making it right now, but we're not. So.
Yeah. I'm gonna spend my money on the Facebook stories sunglasses there. I think. Another thing you linked to the next bonus that I just wanted to mention, which I just thought was really cool. I hadn't thought of it this way, Jeff. So thank you for doing this. You and I talk about Apple TV and the Apple TV Plus streaming service, but I hadn't thought of it from a privacy standpoint. And this was a great story on Cult of Mac, saying and establishing the fact that Apple TV is really the only one of these services that doesn't either collect all of your data, and neither do they sell all of that data. Like anytime you're watching Hulu or Netflix and you see a commercial for something else, you can bet money that something somewhere is collecting the fact that you and your account are watching this ad. Now, most of the time, I'm not really caring too much about it, but another, I guess, good in the plus or the pro column is Apple TV Plus as a streaming service does not collect any of that stuff, and neither do they sell it. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and people have been Nielsen families for a very long time, but the difference there is you're volunteering to do it and getting, I guess, compensated to do it. My understanding is, and I don't know the details of this, but most of the televisions that you can buy nowadays are smart televisions, of course. Yes, and they often have built-in apps for, a built-in YouTube app and a built-in such and such app. But because they have those built-in apps, the TVs absolutely monitor what you're watching and sell that data to third parties. So if it, and again, I'm sure they claim it's anonymized and everything else, but if that bothers you, then that's a reason not to use the built-in apps on your TV and instead to use something like an Apple TV box. And then when it comes to the services you watch, TV Plus, I mean, Apple does definitely respects privacy more than other companies. So it's just another perk. But I thought it was a funny article too, because it's like you say, Brett, it's an aspect of the service I had never thought about before. So.
Right. And I guess that's it. Like there are times, of course, I watch Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime and some of these others, and most of the time it doesn't bother me. But I think it's more of like it's another feather in the hat that when I am watching something on Apple TV Plus, I'm a little happier about it, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
All right. In the know, a couple of tips. Mine came about because my wife was texting with a friend, and all of a sudden this friend replied to a message or a question that my wife had asked like several messages up. And all of a sudden it came in and it looks a little bit different. In fact, I'll see if I can get a picture here of how you can get a little bit different. It looked a little bit different because it wasn't like the most immediate message. The friend had gone up, found the message that she wanted to reply to specifically. And if you tap and hold on that message, wherever it is in that thread, in that conversation thread, you'll get a little pop-up box. Here's what I have on the screen. And it has a reply, it has a copy, and then it has a more. You can do some other things. But if you tap reply, now again, this is a message that's way up in the conversation, right? If you tap reply, what will happen then is that you can then reply to that question that you had asked in an earlier message, and it looks just a little bit different. And that's what my wife was like, hey, how did she do that? It has a little it's hard to kind of understand how this goes on here, but the idea is it has a little string. It's almost like it comes back and it connects it to
like a line or something earlier. Like that.
Yeah. And it looks a little bit different depending on how you reply onto it. But if you can go and test this yourself, just open up, a conversation you have with a family member or so, scroll up to find a message that you had been talking about or question and tap and hold. It comes up with a little secondary menu, a context menu. You tap reply, and that reply will appear as the next message, but it will tie in that previous message. I know I'm taking a lot longer to explain it, but if you just do it, it makes sense. And it really is kind of cool because that way you can reply to something specific that you guys were talking about earlier in the conversation. And you'll see there's a little, like I said, there's a little visual icon, a little line there that tells you what message that you're replying to. And it's just really neat that Apple included that in there. I've never used that very much. I found out about it. My wife was thrilled that I was able to answer and tell her how that happened. But it's something now I'm starting to use almost more and more now.
Yeah, I mean, and the example that you're describing is just a two-party communication. But where I found it more useful is you have these group chats where you may have, 5-10 people in it. And sometimes the text messages are coming in so quickly that one person will say, do you want to do this? Yes or no.
Right.
And then two other people will say something on like maybe a related topic. And you want to make it clear that you're saying yes to the one that's now 3 or 4 up, not the more recent conversation. And so from just a standpoint of clarity, it's really useful. So I'm glad that they have this, and similar features have been around in other messaging things. I'm glad that Apple has it built in. It's useful. I don't use it a lot, and I'll admit that I've maybe used it once or twice. And still, when I'm having a conversation on messages and I see it being used, it still makes me sort of jump back a little bit.
Yeah, it looks different.
Oh yeah, now I see what's going on here. But it always adds clarity. So I like this feature.
Exactly. Yeah, keep that in mind. Tap and hold the message and hit reply. All right, Mr. Jeff, what tip do you have for us?
The one I was going to talk about is Reader View, which is nothing new. You have Reader View on your computer, on your iPad,
one of my favorite.
But Reader View, I find it most useful on my iPhone. And the reason for that is because the screen is smaller. You often, if you just want to read the text and you want to eliminate the ads and the distractions, those sorts of things, you can get into Reader View and then you're just looking at the black text on a white background. Or if you're in the switched color mode, it's white text on a black background.
Right.
But it just allows you to focus on the words, and it puts it in a font that's, I think, very easy to read. Some websites have a fancy font, which can look very nice on a computer and on an iPad, but on the iPhone takes away from legibility, even though it gives it a little bit of style. But if I just want to read the news article, I just want to read the words. And so my tip today, well, first of all, if you don't know about Reader View, my tip is that you should know about it. But my real tip is how to get into it, because most people probably don't know that there are 4 different ways that you can jump into it. First of all, the most obvious way is at the top left of your screen. You can tap the 2 letters. It's like a little A and a big A. And I say the top left of your screen. Safari is going to change a little bit in the future when the next operating system comes out. But even so, when you tap on those letters, then it'll bring up a little menu and you can tap on Show Reader View. That's probably the most straightforward way to do it because you're following the menus. Another way to do it is when you first load a website. So let's say you're going to post on iPhone JD. When you just as the post is starting to come in, within that first second, that little icon with the 2 A's, it will actually instead show the Reader View icon, which sort of looks like a piece of paper. So if you tap very quickly when you're seeing that piece of paper icon instead of the 2-letter A's, then you can jump into Reader View without even having to pop up the menu. But you got to be pretty fast with the fingers for that. The third tip is, even if the page has loaded and you're just looking at the 2 A's up there, you can hold your finger down on those 2 A's for about a second, maybe 2 seconds, maybe like a one long, one Mississippi, that length of time. And if you just hold down, that will flip it into the Reader View, which makes it, as we just said, easier to read. And that one's useful. And then if there happens to be a website that they just have so many ads, it is so distracting, the layout, you don't like the font that they use, and so you want to always see the Reader View when you go to that website, the way that you do that is tap once on the 2 A's at the top, and instead of putting first going to the Show Reader View mode, and then once you've tapped on Show Reader View mode, there will be, if you then tap on the A's again, there will be an option to go to website settings. And if you tap on website settings, you can control a couple things. I think there's 3 options, but one of the options is use Reader automatically. And then once you have set it for that website, then in the future, when you revisit that website again, you'll go straight into the Reader mode. So I don't use that setting on any websites because I often do want to see the graphics and stuff of a website. But multiple times a day, I will hold down on the letter A's to get to the Reader mode. And I will tell you that given the fact that I do it a few times every single day, maybe once every 2 weeks or so, it won't work. Sometimes you'll actually hold down on the A, and the show reader view is grayed out because you can't select it, because some websites use a page format that just doesn't work with reader view. But most of them that you would want to use them on, it does work. So, just keep in mind that there's these 4 different methods. If you're going to internalize one of them, my recommendation is to learn the one where you hold down on the 2 A's for about 2 seconds.
So good.
That's the fastest way to do it. And it just makes for a more pleasant reading experience. So it's a great little tip.
Worth the whole thing right there. I love reader mode. I use it all the time, but I got to tell you, it used to be a single tap. And then, I don't know, a few years ago, they did it to where you tap the 2 A's, and then I had to tap show reader view. And I hated the extra tap.
The 2 steps, right.
The tap and hold. Thank you, my friend. That is so fantastic. I use reader mode all the time. Exactly the way you described it. I do it on the iPad and on my Mac as well. But you're right, for the iPhone, I probably do it more than anything else because I just want an uncluttered view of the text of an article that I'm reading. Oh, that is fantastic. Tap and hold. Thank you. How did I not even know that? I don't know, but I'm so glad that I heard it from you. That is fantastic, Jeff. Thank you. Yeah, reader mode. Absolutely one of the best aspects that they put into Safari. And that's been around for quite a while, but I still find that people just don't know about it. And, with today, some of the websites that we go to, just like you said, there's so much, crud and ads and pop-ups and auto playing videos, my thing that I really hate. And I know why you need advertising, but sometimes I just want to see the text and the content. And so anyway, I use that all the time. Thank you. That's an excellent tip.
I'll just mention one more thing about reader view. Sometimes you want to take some text from a page and just like copy it and send it to someone. I often find that it's easier to do that from within reader view on the iPhone, the iPad, frankly, on the computer too. So that's just another little tip, is that if you're trying to get some text, consider going to the reader view first, and then you can more easily copy the text and paste it into an email.
I do that all the time.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do that all the time. And that's even going to be better with iOS 15, I think, right? With the quick notes and being able to, I'm so excited. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What a great tip. Well, Jeff, thank you. Welcome back. I'm glad you're home, and I know it's going to be busy and cleaning up and everything. So I appreciate you jumping on today, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brett. It was great talking to you. Bye-bye, everybody.